What is the number one key for the Rams to have a successful season, and which veteran signings will have an impact this season? That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramily, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your two-time Super Bowl champion Los Angeles Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you want to check out the video version of the show, find us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, hit that like button, and let us know what is this storyline you're most looking forward to during training camp. Let us know. My name is Doug McKay. My friends call me DMAC. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DMAC_LA. I've been covering LA sports for over a decade, the Lakers for SI, the Dodgers for Dodgers Nation. Now I'm covering the Rams for Locked On. And as always, I'm joined by the Rams pre, half, and post-game show host. He's entering his 8th year covering the team, the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on Twitter at Travis Rogers. And today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your jobs for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job free. Terms and conditions apply. Now, Travis, we are getting closer and closer to football. Training camp starts this week. Are you ready to go, my man?
I can't wait. I know that there's a Hall of Fame game coming up in just about 2 weeks from now, so we are ready to go. There is football on the horizon and can't get here fast enough.
It is here. And one of the big storylines heading into this season is, of course, the offensive line play. Now, when you look at the offensive line, they were decimated by injuries last season. We know that. They completely fell apart. 10 different linemen gave up sacks for a unit that really got together a little bit late, but it was the injuries, it was the inconsistency. But that, to me, is the number one storyline I think I'm looking at heading into this season, because if you don't have that foundation, you talk about the remodel, but the foundation isn't solid, you can't build a house on that. And that is where I'm looking at, is this offensive line.
Yeah, I think that's right. We've talked about this a lot. The everydayers have heard us mention this, that the entire season last year turned on bad offensive line play. And don't get it twisted, right? There were a lot of things about last year that didn't work other than the offensive line, but the whole thing started to break down because of the offensive line. That it was constantly turning over. I don't think that they had the same 5 guys up front until week 13. Believe it or not, you mentioned that 10 different players gave up a sack last season. I'll be honest, DMAC, that seems low. I believe that your stats, but if you would have told me that 20 different guys did it, I would have believed you. That there just felt like there was a revolving door of guys that were struggling right there. If it goes from what it was to even just bad, because it was historically bad. It wasn't just that, oh, you lost this guy or that guy. You had 15 different guys play on that offensive line last year. If you go, I'm not saying you got to have the same 5 guys, 17 weeks in a row, but if you can, instead of having 12 or 15 guys play, if you can have 7 or 8 guys play, they're just going to be night and day from a year ago this year. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be better than it was.
And really, it's only up from last season, right? I mean, The injuries were so bad, it just continued to rear its ugly head all season long. I thought the Rams were going to tweet out, if you own a Rams jersey and live in the Los Angeles area, be at practice tomorrow by 9 a.m. That's how bad it got. We had a security guard, right? I mean, it was terrible.
Yeah, I mean, it was, and it like you just said, it wasn't just, okay, we lost our left tackle, let's start swinging it through, and you lose another left tackle and swing. It was everybody. It was literally all 5 of those guys, with the exception of Rob Havenstein, who was the one guy that was able to kind of miss most of it along the way. Look, who knows what's about to happen here over the next course of the next 5-6 months, but I would be shocked if it's as bad as it was a year ago, just because that kind of bad luck doesn't happen 2 years in a row. Usually, fingers crossed, knocking on wood, all that kind of stuff.
Exactly. Look at 2021. They actually had good luck when it came to injuries. Last year was a different story. 4 of their 5 starters missed at least 4 games. 3 of them were out for more than half of the season. That's not going to happen again, hopefully. I don't care if you have to wrap these guys in bubble wrap during training camp, but look, they need to stay healthy. They need to give you some consistency. But when you look at this offensive line, kind of go position by position, you mentioned Rob Havenstein, and he's a rock. He's a lock to start. He started for the Rams since 2015. Had a little bit of a down year in 2019, but he's been a beast holding down the right side for the Rams for years now. He's a lock. I think really the only question there is are Curry and McClendon Jr. They're going to be battling for his backup spot, and that's about it.
Yeah, no, Rob Havenstein's going to play. As long as he's healthy, he's going to go. He's kind of him and Nopum, I guess you can talk about, and maybe Brian Allen to a certain degree that have been there. But Havenstein's kind of the old guy in the room, right? And not because he's old, but rather he's been around the longest. This is somebody that has played at a high level. This is somebody that played in the Super Bowl. This is somebody that's played in a bunch of playoff games along the way, that he's got to be the guy to kind of, I remember talking to him last year at training camp, coming into a season that ultimately was unsuccessful, and asking him about the departure of Andrew Whitworth. Like, how does that mean? Not just because Andrew Whitworth is a really good left tackle, but he was the leader of that group. He wasn't just the leader of the offensive line. He was the leader of arguably the entire offense, if not the entire football team. But Havenstein told me that, look, I kind of take it on myself to step into that role, that I can't be Andrew Whitworth, but I need to kind of set the tone. I need to be the guy that the younger guys lean on. And it never really happened like that because all the young guys kept dropping like flies. He was the only one that was there, and constantly trying to bring a guy that had just walked into the program under your wing week after week after week was certainly a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. It's tough when you're mentoring someone, when you're introducing yourself to them every single week and you really don't know these guys. You can build that and develop that. So, yeah, I agree with that. It'll be nice to see him take on more of a leadership role. I don't think he's going to be a big winner or anything like that, but he's absolutely the foundation as far as the guy that's been here the longest, has been the best the longest. Then you look at that right guard position. I think this one is where it gets pretty interesting. I mean, Logan Bruss, of course, he's basically a rookie this season when you consider the fact that he goes down during training camp, during preseason. He tears his ACL, doesn't see any game action. But really before that, he did look overmatched by NFL competition. But during college, he proved himself to be a really nice player. I hope he gets it together this season.
He needs to. Right. I mean, he's going to need to play well. He's going to need to stay healthy. He's going to need to be an important part of what they do. That, like you mentioned, the Rams have not had a first-round draft pick since Jared Goff. So their second-round draft picks take on added importance. They took Tutu Atwell in the second round. Hasn't worked out so far to this point. They took Logan Bruss, like you mentioned, as their top pick 2 drafts ago, and he didn't get a chance to play really other than in the preseason. He needs to play well. He needs to take that job. It needs to be something that they can move forward on. It needs to be something that they can rely on, because you can't miss on your top pick repeatedly. And they missed on Atwell. They need to make sure that Logan Bruss is not a second consecutive miss.
Yeah, they can't afford for him to be a miss. They need him to produce. And you look at that right guard, you got Shelton, who possibly, if he gets beat out by Brian Allen, which I think he will, he could be competing there. Steve Avila, I think he takes over the left guard spot. You got Ankrum, you got Jackson, who no boom, the left tackle spot, McClendon Jr. So there's going to be guys competing for that swing tackle role if they get beat out in other positions. And you look at the center spot, and you got Brian Allen, who I think ultimately wins the job, but Coleman Shelton, he could give him a run for his money.
He absolutely can, and he's played well, and this is one of the guys that the Rams went out of their way to re-sign. This is one of the few, free agent signings that they had last season, even if there's one of their own guys along the way. What I think makes Coleman Shelton more valuable is that he can play all 3 of those interior line positions. It would be nice to have him as kind of that, utility guy, your Chris Taylor, so to speak, on your offensive line, to kind of slide him in as needed. That if you had, Avila and Brian Allen and Logan Bruss all doing what they need, now you have a little depth, and now you have quality depth, and we know how important that is. Whereas if he beats somebody out at any of those 3 positions, now your depth is a little less meaningful. Now all of a sudden you're maybe into those second and third level guys, and we've seen how that looks, and it doesn't look great.
Exactly. You need some versatility. You need guys that can clean it up in certain spots, especially if guys go down. You look at Brian Allen. I think it's going to be interesting. You talk about Havenstein. I think you can count on him. Allen, though, limited to just 7 games last year, didn't play great when he was healthy. He ranked 20th in overall grading, finished 37th in pass blocking at 59.2, according to Pro Football Focus. But in 2021, he was graded out as the 6th highest center in 2021. So if you can get back to that and produce at that level, that's going to go a long way to solidifying this offensive line.
He's good, right? When he hit the bang on him, the criticism of him is he got hurt a lot. This goes all the way back to when he first came into the league. He has had a hard time staying on the field. When he has, he's been pretty good. I mean, keep in mind, this was a guy that was the starting center on a Super Bowl winning team. That is not something that you just go, hey, whatever. That's a meaningful note. And I think that he can get back to that level. I think that he's good enough. And if he is, now all of a sudden Coleman Shelton can slide to those other 2 guard spots, which is important.
Exactly. I think that's going to be the case there. And then I think the big battle, of course, is going to be the left tackle spot. Yep. Jackson versus Noteboom. But real quickly, second year of his contract, $40 million with Noteboom. You know they want to work that out. They know that's a vote of confidence in this offseason, knowing that they had restructured his deal. Issue with him, allowed 5 sacks in 6 games. 3 of them came in the opener against Buffalo when he got dominated there by Von Miller. The other 2 are against Nick Bosa. So when you look at the competition, I think you have to take it and put in some context there.
Look, if he's good, then he's good, right? That this is kind of the season to determine what we think of Joe Noteboom. He's filled in for Andrew Whitworth previously. It's like, hey, that looks pretty good. And then when he got the job for himself, he didn't look very good, and he got hurt. So I think this is an opportunity for us to decide what kind of football player he is. You mentioned he struggled with some of those high-end guys like Miller and Bosa. Everybody kind of struggles with Miller and Bosa. It's what do you do against everybody else that I think is going to determine what kind of success he has.
100%. That's going to be the biggest key there. And of course, Alec Jackson, he's strong as an ox. Run blocking, he was impressive against the Vikings at 90.8 run blocking grade, so he has potential there. He's a guy that wants to play that left tackle position. I think if they're going with meritocracy, if they're going with the best 5 guys, I do think there's a chance that Jackson wins that position. In my heart of hearts, deep in my bones, I kind of think he does ultimately possibly win that position, but he can also be a valuable swing tackle and a versatile backup too. But it is going to be the key. Offensive line, they have to perform. They have to stay healthy. They have to protect Matthew Stafford at all costs. Yep. But coming up in our next segment here on Locked On Rams, which Rams veterans that they signed will have the biggest impact, will make the team? That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available, and that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free, right? The football season's about to start. Maybe you're gearing up for the start of your new year, and hiring people is all about finding the right candidates, knowing where to look for the right candidates. This is why LinkedIn Jobs is so important. And it's so easy to create a job post for free on LinkedIn Jobs. You just add your purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidate with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you would like to interview and who you would like to hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus the leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
And we're off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single day. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Also available on YouTube, so find us over on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button. We just passed 7,000 subscribers, trying to get to 8K before the season begins. And a special shout out to our everyday listeners. We appreciate you. You can join the Everyday Listeners Club too. Membership is free. Just watch and listen every day, and you won't miss a thing about your Los Angeles Rams. Now, Travis, here in our second segment, we're talking about these veterans that they signed. Now, we know this is an organization that has made it their MO to go out there and make big splashy signings, make big splashy trades. That wasn't the case this year. They didn't spend very much money at all. They did bring in some veterans that are going to potentially have roles on this team. Of course, Sony Michel is back. They go out there and get Ahkelo Witherspoon. You talk about DeMarcus Robinson, a receiver. So just kind of what's your take on what the Rams did as far as bringing in these veterans? What do you think the message was with that?
I think that the veterans are there in case of. Right. In case of the guys that we've drafted, in case of the guys that we've already had on our roster, in case of the guys that we signed as undrafted free agents, in case those guys just don't bring what we need to bring, we have a little of experience, whether it's with Sony Michel, for instance, backing up a guy like Cam Akers. Sony Michel is there for one reason, and that's if Cam Akers does what he did last year again. So you can slide him in there in case Kyron Williams isn't quite ready to go. In case, Zach, these guys aren't ready to go, then you have a guy that can do the job. That's what those guys are there for. This is a team that is in a transition year. This is not a team where you go out and you're collecting a bunch of veterans to put them in there and have them make a huge impact right away. This is more safety. This is more, if my guys don't work, then I have these other guys to go to. Look, some of them will play. Some of them are going to get cut. Some of them are going to never see the field, even if they make the team. These guys there for insurance, not necessarily to step in from day one and lead the way.
I agree with you. It does feel like they're almost bring case of emergency, but more so if the younger guys don't step and provide what they hope they will. I want to first talk about what you said with Sony Michel. I think Sony Michel, he's a veteran. He brings stability. He knows the system. He's by far the best when it comes to pass protection, but he's not going to be a guy that's going to be explosive. He's not a threat to take to the house with big runs. He won't provide much as a receiver. And also, though, I think if you look at those younger guys, Kyron Williams, he dealt with injuries. Can he emerge as a true third down back that can help you in the receiving game in some capacity? How about Zach Evans, who I think has all the talent and upside in the world? And I think if you look at that, it's almost like the mystery box versus, hey, if I go up to you and I say, hey, I'll give you $100 or you can check what's in this mystery box and you don't know what it is, right? And then you open the mystery box and it's like a PS5, right? They're hoping that Zach Evans can be that PS5 for them and step up and also the same with Kyron Williams.
Yeah, look, they're going to, again, so much depends on how this team starts. If this team gets off to a good start, then they're going to kind of manage what they do one way. If this team gets off to shall we say, a slower start, if they struggle out of the gates, I think you're going to manage their veterans a slightly different way. So I really do think that how they open is going to determine whether or not a lot of these guys get if they play early and they win, they're going to continue to play. If they play early and they lose, I don't think you're going to see very much of these guys. You know what I mean? That it's because the goal changes week to week. I know I've said this all the time, and I know I'm getting a little off topic here, but week 10 is when you're going to know what's happened. The hard part of the schedule is pre-week 10. The opportunities to win game is post-week 10. And I think that these veterans, if they're still around by this point, will probably still be playing because it indicates that they have a chance to maybe get into the playoffs. If it goes the way that it might and you're losing a bunch of games, I think a lot of these guys are down the road.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about these veterans, and you mentioned week 10, is there's no guarantee they're going to make it to week 10. There's no guarantee they're going to make this roster. Are they camp bodies? Are they guys that create competition? Or do the Rams not like what they have and say, okay, we need to bring guys in there that compete for these positions? Now, the Rams, they could keep just three backs, Akers, Williams, and Evans, but they all had issues last season in different capacities. As far as Zach Evans, he's an unknown rookie. Cam Akers, of course, he had that drama. Kyron Williams, he dealt with the injuries. Last they had Ronnie Rivers. He was the Rams RB1 for a game. So
Ronnie Rivers. Don't forget about his big poker win last year. Ronnie
exactly.
Rivers.
The big poker win. Bought his mom a house, so he'll be just fine. So, yeah, he's going to be okay. And then I think the interesting one, too, is Ahkelo Witherspoon. So, Witherspoon, the Rams may keep 4, maybe they could keep 5 cornerbacks. Last year, they went to camp with 4. 2020, they did the same. Usually they'll go deeper at the safety spot. But really, other than Jacoby Durant, you have pretty much no locks after that as far as Darion Kendrick, who I know they like. Robert Rochelle is a high upside guy with a lot of athletic potential. He hasn't realized that potential. Sean Jolly, Travis Hodges Tomlinson, I think he's an absolute pit bull that's going to make this team and actually have an impact. DeMarcus Davis, Jordan Jones, and Vincent Gray. So I think Witherspoon had a down year in 2022, dealt with those hamstring injuries, but in 2021, he was one of the better cornerbacks in the league. They can use him on the outside. I feel like he makes this team and has some sort of an impact.
I think he makes the team. I think he does have an impact. I think it depends what they're trying to do. I'm a broken record, DMAC. I get it. But he's also a guy that may be, I don't want to say this. He may not be helpful to the end goal, shall we say, right? They may decide that this is a year that is better served in, air quotes, development. This is a year better served in, let's see what roster construction we may have moving forward. He may be a guy that does the job really, really well, and that may not necessarily be in alignment with what they're trying to get done globally, right? That, again, there's the worst place for this team to be is 6 or 7 wins. That's what you don't. 6 or 7 wins is a failed season. 10 wins, great season. Believe it or not, 2 wins, while really hard to go through and watch for five months, is not a failed season. It sets you up for whatever's coming up in 2024. So Witherspoon is one of those guys that may not fit the long-term goals of this team.
And that's why it feels like almost like it's a house money type of season, because there's different wins that either you win on the field or you don't win on the field, and you win in another area because you think that might be better for the long-term stability of the organization. So I do think this team wants to win. I think internally they think they have the potential of making the playoffs if everyone stays healthy, if everything works out. So I definitely think that there are different ways that you could spin this season as a positive, let's just say, based on the potential outcome. But I think Witherspoon, like you said, I think he'll make the team. I mean, 2021 had a 78.8 coverage grade, ranked 8th and 2nd in man coverage. So he has been productive in his career, has had success in this division, guarding some of the best receivers, the
DK Metcalf of the world. To be the vet, right? They're so green in the secondary. They're so inexperienced that having somebody that's been around the league the way that he has is useful as well.
Yeah, you need some vets, man. We can't have this place turning into Camp Krusty, right? I mean, you need some adults in the room to go out there and show the way. But what I'm actually pretty excited about, I think DeMarcus Robinson, as what he brings to that receivers room. And I think you talk about kind of the path for some of these guys. What's the plan for him? Is it just to compete for a roster spot? Did the Rams sign him for a specific plan? Because I think if you look at his experience, he's a guy that's had experience as a punt returner, as a kick returner, and he's a guy who's not a blazing speed guy, 4.59 40, but he's been very, very productive. According to Next Gen Stats, he ranked 3rd in average separation at 4.2 yards. So he's a guy that has had success in the past, and I think if none of these other guys step up, he could be waiting in the wings to get his opportunity.
Look, I think that might be the most interesting positional battle going on in camp from the time that they open to the time that they kick it off against the Seattle Seahawks. Like that is a really interesting group. I think that you've got Cooper Kupp and Van Jefferson, who are in a really good spot. And then I think you got everybody else who's fighting like hell to be those 3rd, 4th, and 5th wide receivers. And like we've talked about, being a special teamer, like you just mentioned with Robinson, that's a leg up that maybe he has on some other guys that they don't have. But this is, to me, along with the offensive line, the most interesting part going into training camp, to see exactly who it is that they're going to use to try to complement Kupp. And Jefferson obviously has the inside track on being that second guy, and I don't expect anything other than he makes the team. But beyond that, I think everything is up in the air.
Yeah, absolutely. And Robinson, we talk about these injuries. One thing I have to say about him, he is durable. He's a guy that posts. He's reliable. He has never missed a single game in his 7-year career. He played all 16 games in his 5 years with the Chiefs, had 17 games in 2021, 17 with the Ravens in 2022. Also, he can bond with Cooper Kupp in that they both had big plays where they burned Eli Apple. They caught pass on Eli Apple. He did one against the Ravens. So that's something they can connect on.
Yeah, the burning the Eli Apple Club would have a line around the block. It would look like Rise of the Resistance at Disneyland. It's not an exclusive club.
Absolutely. I think I could catch one on him for sure. But coming up here in our final segment, Travis, we've got some news and some more information on a potential state-of-the-art practice facility that could be coming to Woodland Hills. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams. I want to give a shout out to our everyday listeners, by the way, who rock with us every single day. You guys can join the Everyday Listeners Club too. Be sure to just hit that subscribe button, watch every day, listen every day, and you won't miss anything about your Los Angeles Rams. But here, let's get into this final topic, because I know we're excited to talk about this one. The Rams, they could be opening a state-of-the-art practice facility in Woodland Hills. We know they're out in Thousand Oaks at Cal Lutheran. It's about 50 miles from SoFi Stadium. UC Irvine, 40 miles from SoFi Stadium. Woodland Hills, 30 miles.
Yeah, look, it's funny. I think this is one of the next steps of this team. And it's weird. This is their 8th season here in LA, but really kind of growing roots. That this is a team that finally has their stadium, right? When they're at the Coliseum, it's like, all right, this is their temporary home until we get the stadium built. They've been at Cal Lu since they came back, and this was their temporary home until they find a more permanent facility to practice and do meetings and all these, physical training and all these things. This is kind of the last piece of their root growing here in town. The Valley, look, it's weird because this isn't baseball, right? This isn't where you're constantly coming in and out of the stadium. The stadium can be almost anywhere. You're only there really one day a week. That I think that the players living in the Valley, it's a good spot for them. Maybe it's not super close to where some of the stuff that isn't great can happen. So you're a little bit outside of the city center. I think it's a good spot for them. I think it's a great spot for all the staffers that maybe have to work at this place to live in and around the Valley. It's an interesting spot. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think location-wise, I mean, it's tough to really find a lot of space in Los Angeles that has that much space. And we know that, I mean, this guy has dropped a bag, Mr. Stan Kroenke, on real estate. I mean, they're entering $25 million in January, according to the Los Angeles Times. You got the Village Mall. So, yeah, I think that it's a good location as far as, you talk about employees having places for them to live in nearby areas. I think players as well. I mean, everyone thinks these players buy houses in Bel Air and Beverly Hills, but that's not the case, right?
If you're Aaron Donald, sure. If you're Matthew Stafford, you can live in Bel Air or, Holmby Hills or whatever it is. But, the vast majority of these guys live in nice but relatively normal neighborhoods or apartments or condos or whatever it is. And the Valley certainly gives you lots of options there.
Yeah, and he's been quietly doing this since March of 2022. Kroenke has paid a combined sum of approximately $650 million to acquire nearly 100 acres of Warner Center real estate, including the Anthem Blue Cross site, the neighboring Village Mall, and the Promenade Mall, which comes with entitlements for a 3.2 million square foot mixed-use project featuring more than 1,400 homes, hotels, offices, and a 10,000-seat indoor entertainment venue. So I know it's very interesting that we're talking about facilities, right? But I think that you look at this facility, what it means to this team. I think you brought up the best point. I think this further establishes them here in Los Angeles as the team of LA. I mean, I think if you get even a handful of people going to training camp, if that's where they move it, that's going to be big as far as just the future of this organization in this city.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that this is something that they continue to build and grow and have an identity, both not just in Inglewood, not just in Thousand Oaks, but in the Valley, across town, and all these things. And here's what you know for sure, that if Stan Kroenke is building it, it's going to be great. Right, that he has invested in this team to a degree that I don't think anybody that's reasonable could complain about. The stadium, the game experience that you have, the players that they've gone out and paid, the way that they've gone and paid their coach and taken care of him, that when they decide to invest in something, whether it's personnel, whether it's real estate, whether it's a brand new facility, it's going to be a home run. I'm really excited to see it because everything else that they've done so far has been aces.
100%. It's going to be state of the art. It almost reminds me of these colleges. It's like this arms race who has the best practice facility. You have like Oregon and Clemson. They have a slide in Clemson. It's insane. I mean, are we going to see stuff like that as far as like at the college level? Because I hope that, it could appeal to free agents and want free agents to want to play and train here.
Whatever it takes, right? I mean, this is look, here's why players decide to go where they go. Number one, who's got the money? Right? Number two, do I have a chance to win? That number three, where is it? And then number four, it's all of those other things that you're talking about. So when it comes to money, that is what it is. You either have the money, can spend it, or you want. Where do I have a chance to win? The Rams have proven that they have a chance to win. Where is it? Los Angeles, for a lot of people, is a very appealing place to live. And then lastly, the extras, the stadium, the facility, the practice. If those things are A+, you check every box.
I feel like they should give us a locked-on office there. I mean, they have so much space. I mean, just give us a nice little locked-on office, little mini studio. I mean, they got tons of space. Why not? But that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DMac_LA. And you can follow the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers, at Travis Rogers. And until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams House.